Science facilitates the advancement of human society. Without any forms of complex thought into the world we live and breathe in, we would never have become such a widespread and advanced civilization. And science needs to continue in order to solve the many problems that humanity currently faces. But some of these problems crop up because of science. We use science to solve impending crises and allow ourselves to live better lives, but our solutions can cause more harm down the road. It's a vicious cycle that we need to follow to survive and thrive, and it's a narrative that some video games attempt to tell. We discovered something revolutionary, but we failed to understand its repercussions, and because of that, the world is now fucked up. But better than any other game, I think that this is perfectly told by the story of XCOM.
Hello, Commander. In light of the recent extraterrestrial incursion, this Council of Nations has convened to approve the activation of the XCOM project.
Now, you don't have to understand any XCOM lore to understand this video, although it may be helpful to gather some context. In short, XCOM is a game where Earth is being invaded by aliens, and it's your job to save humanity from the brink of subjugation. But today, we're going to look at the darker side of this game. One that's never explicitly brought to your attention, but is always hinted at in the background.
Hello, Commander. My name is Dr. Vahlen.
This is Dr. Vahlen. She's the lead researcher for the XCOM project, assigned to aid you in understanding the biology of the aliens and adapting their technologies for your own use. Throughout the game, you can task her to do autopsies, weapons research, interrogations, and some other unspeakable acts I'll talk about later. And all of this would be great and a really big help to your resistance operation. Except for the fact that her research might just kill us all. Of course, the game never tells you this, but once you start piecing together her motives, interests, and dialogue, it quickly becomes clear that she's too captivated by the aliens. Her experiments go from trying to comprehend what these creatures are, to blurring the lines between aliens and humans. To her, science is everything. She must know the truth, no matter the cost. And the first time this is insinuated is literally within the first 10 seconds of XCOM Enemy Within. This quote is basically a summary of everything I've said so far, and everything of what's to come. In simpler terms, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. The more experiments Vahlen conducts about the aliens, the less human we become. And she definitely reinforces this fact in one of the earliest cutscenes in the game, during which Vahlen discovers a very interesting alien material she calls the meld.
My team is more interested in the possibility of physically altering the tissue itself, incorporating aspects of the alien's own genetic adaptations by using the nanites to fuse the foreign material.
Basically, she wants to inject this mystery substance into your soldiers to enhance their combat abilities. In any other circumstance, this would never get approved, but in XCOM, this application of the meld is understandable. I get that this is a time of crisis, and that if we tried to follow modern codes of ethics, then we would probably be 6 feet under before the aliens fired a weapon. Genetically modifying soldiers to be more alien-like is needed during such a time, so we can chalk up Vahlen's lack of ethical consideration to a sense of desperation, rather than fascination. But can we prove that Vahlen has any sense of morality at all? To easily figure this out, we can sift through the game files and look at chiefscientistwavedata.in, which contains subtitles for every single piece of dialogue that Vahlen says throughout the game outside of cutscenes. In some lines, she does manage to show some apprehension. For example, when your soldiers bring back this alien artifact, which is called the ethereal device, Vahlen says,
I accept the fact that there could be risks involved in studying this new alien device, but the enemy leaves us with no other choice.
Another line talks about the application of alien technology for the betterment of society. Quote, nothing will ever be the same. The work that we've done here to adapt the technology of a hostile enemy force has advanced the scientific progress of mankind by untold generations. These weapons, these abuses of science, we still have an opportunity to use them for a greater good. We have paid a heavy price, but our efforts have not been in vain. These are all very optimistic interpretations of what society could become with alien tech, but she fails to recognize the other side of the coin, the sign where alien tech becomes humanity's oppressor, where alien weaponry just becomes another addition to a military arsenal. And besides, her hopes and desires are overshadowed by her more curious tendencies.
God only knows what they're doing to these people. All the more reason to blow them to hell. Get moving.
This mission takes place early in the game and has you explore a secret underground alien lab. You find out that, like XCOM, the aliens are experimenting on and exploring human biology, and at the end of the mission, you encounter your first psionic enemy, which can mind control your units and cause them to shoot at your fellow XCOM personnel.
Incredible. That alien seems to have taken control of that soldier somehow. All of the advances we've made so far, they would be useless against this type of power.
Vahlen ignores the fact that one of XCOM's very own soldiers is now attacking their own kind. She's more intrigued by the fact that mind control is even possible, and that this alien is weaponizing it. To her, the thought of researching the capabilities of mind control and psionic abilities is more important to her than the lives of her units, the ones that allow her to perform science in the first place. Yet, she constantly nags you about not using grenades or explosives to blow up any artifacts that the aliens might be carrying.
Throwing grenade!
Commander, you may want to instruct your men to exercise restraint when using explosives. While certainly effective at killing aliens, they also destroy the artifacts we're hoping to recover from the bodies. Just something to consider.
And yeah, I know that there are some moments in the game where Vahlen does show some concern for your units, but it seems as if to her, your soldiers are simply just a vessel through which she can conduct more experiments. So, this dialogue was the first indication to me that Vahlen was too deep into her research. She's a scientist fascinated by the alien invasion. XCOM needed her around because the rapid rate at which she researched was crucial to building up a formidable resistance to the aliens, but even still, she still felt restricted by the project's management. There's another scene towards the back half of the game that further proves my point.
Ever since mankind first looked up at the stars, we have wondered what lies beyond. So very few have dared to look. In the depths of the human mind hold more secrets than we can possibly imagine. How ironic that the means to defeat our enemy comes not through weapons or machines of war, but from within. And if we have succeeded, we will have gained a glimpse of what we are to become. We will have created something extraordinary.
Is extraordinary really the perfect word to describe a soldier who now has the ability to control other people's wills? Vahlen's description of the soldier, who basically has been forced against their will to become an alien-like god, is always shocking to me because I always compare it to the other base personnel's reaction to the psionic units. Specifically, I'm reminded of Dr. Shen, who serves as your chief engineer throughout the game.
Do we not have an ethical obligation to prepare these soldiers for the changes, permanent changes, that they will experience? Mark it in the history books. This is the end of an era for mankind. Even after we've defeated the remaining aliens, what then? Have we sacrificed our own humanity for a taste of their technology? And if we manage to exploit this power further, do we risk being consumed by it, presumably just as they were?
Shen's response is probably the one we would normally expect and want to hear. Whereas he shows concern and ethical consideration for the soldiers, Vahlen's response feels distanced and careless. To her, the soldier is now a creation, a chimera, a human-alien fusion that also doubles as a weapon. Again, I'm very aware that there's an ongoing alien invasion going on outside while this is all happening, but Shen demonstrates a foresight that Vahlen never shows. If humans do manage to win, what would become of these psionically gifted soldiers? Could they really live a normal life after being genetically modified? All of this was quite alarming to me, but it wasn't concrete enough evidence to prove Vahlen's recklessness. To investigate further, we have to look into XCOM's sequel. In XCOM 2, there's a DLC mission called Alien Hunters, which has you follow through on an emergency signal you receive. For context, XCOM 2 isn't exactly a continuation of XCOM 1. The timeline here is that you lost in XCOM 1, so the aliens took over Earth and destroyed your resistance operation. XCOM 2 is sent 20 years after XCOM 1, and the only person left from the surviving cast besides you is Central, or Bradford, or basically your previous second in command. It's kinda confusing, so I hope I explained that well. So anyway, what happened to Vahlen in those 20 years?
Biological readings in this area are erratic. In addition to several species of alien
Hold
fauna.
up, Doctor. We've got something.
The data must be preserved at all costs. You must hurry! Take this and find Bradford!
Somehow, she managed to survive XCOM's failure and continued her research elsewhere, but throughout this mission, you find out what went awry with her new project. Once again, we can look in the game file to see every single line Vahlen says during this mission.
With 3 unique, viable embryos recovered from the surviving cryostasis unit, I now have a rare opportunity, one never afforded to me during my time with XCOM. I am free to pursue a research directive of my own choosing. Success! I have managed to remove the genetic blockers on the specimen's DNA, allowing the repressed traits to flourish. While subjects Alpha and Beta show promise, it is subject Gamma I find the most intriguing. I have made a terrible mistake. Commander, I sometimes wish you were here to keep my ambitions in check. Subject Gamma has escaped. A tremor opened, a minute fracture in the containment unit. That was all the creature needed. It shattered the metal, cracking it as if it were glass or a sheet of thin ice.
Damn it, Vahlen. What did you do?
In simpler terms, she fucked around with 3 alien eggs and ended up creating 3 alien super soldiers, one of which you were forced to fight at the end of the mission. Without Bradford, or you, or anyone from the original XCOM project around to keep her curiosity in check, she compulsively felt the need to monitor these eggs, for science of course. She kept a detailed log of their development, talking about how they were showing greater signs of intelligence and prowess every day. She devised some plans to restrict their growth, but in the end, it was all in vain. Her samples escaped, she failed to contain her experiment, and now there are 3 very powerful and intelligent life signs roaming around the planet. As a last-ditch effort, she set up the warning beacon, hoping that Bradford, or anyone who received the signal, would stay clear of that spot. It's not as if she wanted the eggs to hatch, but like I mentioned at the start of the video, when you first meet Vahlen, she comes off as eager, like she wants to help your cause with her background in astrobiology. However, as the game progresses, it becomes clearer and clearer that her actions may not be saving you, but accelerating your demise. In a strange way, we can draw a comparison between her and a real scientist with a noticeable impact in the world, J. Robert Oppenheimer. As head of the Los Alamos laboratory, where key research for the Manhattan Project was being conducted, he both dreaded and craved the invention of the atomic bomb. On one hand, he felt the pressure of his country on himself, since at the time, there were fears that Germany, or the other Axis powers, were also developing their own nuclear weapon programs. On the other hand, he didn't want development of this technology to continue or be weaponized outside of wartime. And in an interview conducted after the war about the first nuclear tests, Oppenheimer said that while they were testing the bombs at New Mexico, he remembered a line from Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." After the war, Oppenheimer strictly discouraged further development of nuclear weapons and instead advocated for more peaceful applications of nuclear energy. And this is where he and Vahlen diverge. While making this video, I realized that there was a really interesting dichotomy forming here. I've been implicitly bringing up this question of, why did they do it? Why did Vahlen create a psionic soldier? Why did she fuse alien and human material together using the melt? And in the same vein, why did Oppenheimer spearhead a research team focused on making deadly weapons? Well, because they had to. Oppenheimer was in the midst of World War II, and Vahlen was in the midst of an alien invasion. They both felt pressured to help out the cause, to give themselves a fighting chance. But alongside that, we've been exploring the question of, did they understand how they were infecting humanity with their research? Oppenheimer recognized the dangers of developing these atomic weapons, as he thought weapons of mass destruction, powerful enough to level cities, would never be safe in the hands of anyone. But we can't say the same for Vahlen. Vahlen never recognized the dangers of her work, even after she disengaged from XCOM. Her research only created even more of an extraterrestrial threat. Her intentions are good, but her lack of foresight is terrifying. And I mean, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen in 50 years from now. But if history's taught us one thing, it's that we're still suffering from the scientific advancements we made 100 years ago. I'm not saying that we should try to halt the progress of science and innovation, because modern research and problem solving is crucial for all of humanity to survive and thrive. But what's important here is that we think through what we create, that we think about both the positive and the negative that can come from our work. Vahlen couldn't control these desires. She saw what her work could be used for, but never stopped to consider what her work would ultimately become.
Dr. M. Vahlen, Chief Scientist, XCOM, signing off.